My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, we warned you all.
Yes.
Not we forward promoted it. We warned you all.
Mm-hmm.
But ladies and gentlemen, it's America's sweetheart. It's Aaron.
Woo!
I am become death, destroyer of worlds.
Thank you so much, Harvey.
It is an absolute delight, as always, to get to talk to you, but to have you on the podcast. And outside of Rebaked, this is actually the first time we've had you on.
This is my week.
Yeah. Oh, except for obviously your brilliant work with a microphone at Stately Manor. We can't underestimate that work, and we mourn those that were lost in the tragedies that took place.
Like my shoes.
They're still being pumped, I believe, at Stately Manor, some of them at least. So we had to get you on for this week. When the series was announced and they were doing the running order, and we were talking about podcasting and what we were going to do with the podcasting, Aaron immediately got on to me and went, so, either some form of floral or citrus week, I want in. And citrus week is a thing, so therefore, Aaron is here.
Yes. No, look, I would have cut absolutely sick if we'd had a citrus week. The camera would have caught me use the phrase, "This is my week."
Yes, it would have. It would have. He would have just, all he would have been saying, just all the way down the hill, "This is my week."
And I would have gone home.
He would have gone running down that hill and sliding on that clover.
We were running up that hill.
That was the alternative to running up that hill.
Yeah, it's the alternate Kate Bush. So before we get into Citrus Week, it's a really interesting mixture because I really like this episode. I thought this was a good one. And it's always nice to come out of one that you're not as big a fan of, which was, obviously we weren't a massive fan of Dessert Week. How did you find Dessert Week?
Now, look, in defense of Dessert Week, as a viewer, I wasn't a fan. Like, just the episode, your criticisms of, just how everything kind of fell out on screen, I think are fair. But as somebody who's been in the same experience as a lot of the bakers, it's like, I know that, and you've spoken to Alenka before, and you've spoken to Nicole before her, like the focus is on loving the bakes and loving the bakers. And I'm just going to go out on a limb. And if any of the current bakers are listening and would like to correct me, it seems like a lot of people had a bit of struggle town during Dessert Week. And so if a baker, and I know this from experience, if a baker is struggling with a particular challenge to the point where like they're panicking, like editing where possible wants to try and get rid of, like they want to keep the show sweetness and light.
Yeah.
And so if people are struggling, they try to like get rid of as much of that as possible, unless it's, relevant to the narrative. Like it's the difference between who stays and who goes, or who wins Star Baker and who doesn't. And so if a lot of people are struggling, like I know, like you mentioned that like Laura seemed to vanish from the showstopper a little bit.
Yep.
I remember like Nostalgia Week last season, I was struggling with multiple instances of split ganache, and I was really stressing out, and I just wasn't really in that showstopper. And so if that's happening with a lot of people, you're going to get editing that looks a bit off. Yep. So I don't think Dessert Week was necessarily, I definitely don't think Dessert Week was an indication of the bakers' talents, because they are all talented. And I don't think it was necessarily an indication of anything production was doing wrong. It's like, to keep everything sweetness and light, they had to work with the best bits they could. And that just means that we end up with an episode that feels kind of
disjointed.
Yeah.
So in that respect, then, I mean, we kind of notice it that, in different seasons, like there'll be a week where it just feels like, the mojo's a bit down. And I think all of us have it. Like I put it towards like homesickness, or that kind of like, if you've been, like if we remember school camp, like that, if you've been on a week-long camp, that middle kind of like day, like the Wednesday or the Thursday, is when it's a bit psychologically tough.
The night when half the cabin is crying because they missed their parents.
Yes. And then someone's, lost all their underwear because some bitch stole it all. Not going to air grievances today.
And yet here we are.
That wasn't me, by the way. That was a friend of mine, and I'm just angry still on her behalf. But it's one of those things that's kind of like, now we know that that's potentially the reason, it makes perfect sense, and it makes me have a lot more compassion towards not just the bakers, but appreciation for the team of and the producers and the editors who are like, no, we don't need to fucking exploit people's tough times to make a good show. You know, we can let that pass. So
like I remember I messaged Alenka when that episode aired, just being all like, oh, thanks for not, showing me panicking. And she's like, of course, like, that's the point of the show is to focus on, the successes. Yeah. So why would we, show me panicking about ganache? And why would you show these bakers, panicking about ice cream fans?
And I think that the hard part, I think, just to finish up on that before we move on to much more happy things, was that, again, the thing that sort of stuck with me a lot was just the structure of the challenges didn't make it feel like it gave them the best shot. And I think everything snowballed off the back of a very open brief into the technical, which was, it was a technical. And then a showstopper that was more signature than showstopper. And just, I think it was just felt so... The running order of that felt so disjointed that I think that flowed into everything else that happened. And as you said, what you then get is people sort of panicking a bit. You get people sort of looking at the show and going, no, we don't focus on negatives. We focus on positives. Let's look at the positives. And so focusing on the positives and trying to find them. And again, I think the biggest example of that was when they got to the bit where they were saying who's doing well. And they were like, Adam's doing well. And the next bit was, Neil has the potential to do well. And that kind of gives you that we're really looking here for something.
That shouldn't be taken as a sarcasm or as a negative either. It's
they were literally trying to find something where they could go, this person's got the ability to have a really good week as well. They've shown it.
They've got a grade on a scale.
Yes, exactly. It's like you do that, you do that. So
that's right. I'm doing a podcast with two teachers. Here we go.
So let's go into happier things.
Yes, much like the little bowl of water with a slice of lemon in it that your parents put out with the seafood platter at Christmas. Here comes Citrus Week to refresh everyone.
That is the greatest segue.
Yes.
That's brilliantly done. Now,
and a mood boosh.
Can I just say
the prawn brains on our fingers from last week. We're just gonna dunk them in the citrus water and wash it off.
Yeah.
It's fresh. Starting anew.
So that's what didn't happen. There was no citrus bowl with the prawns. So anyway, before we to get into this, on the drinking game card this week, can I just say we had for me the most amazing miss in drinking game history.
Oh no.
Which was Citrus Week.
Yeah.
And Yuzu was a miss.
What?
I know.
There was no Yuzu.
Nerman's not dead, but he's spinning in his grave.
No, Nerman is not dead, but he's spinning in his grave. That being said, I do have to big Nerman up here, and Aaron knows where I'm going with this. Okay. So on the weekend, Aaron and I were both in Tasmania.
That's not a euphemism.
No, not a euphemism. We were actually in Tasmania. To visit with the illustrious Nerman, and
that's also not a euphemism.
No, and he made an absolutely brilliant yuzu tart. I'm
See, that had enough yuzu in it to cover all of Citrus Week.
It was unbelievable. My biggest disappointment, by the way, Aaron, was Aaron had to fly out a day before I did. I went back to have the leftovers of this meal that was there. The second yuzu tart had gone.
What?
I got no follow-up yuzu tart.
Where did it go?
I was heartbroken. I don't know. I ate 2 very large pieces on Saturday, but
did you take the mac and cheese?
Oh yeah, there was a whole other mac and cheese. I ate it on your behalf.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Nerman sent Aaron a message that said that I was eating this mac and cheese on his behalf because it was a 6-cheese mac and cheese with truffle.
Yeah. Oh.
Aaron will be having dreams about that for forever.
I will.
Go out and get the truffles himself. I'm just imagining he's got his own truffle dog, like a truffle pig.
He has a truffle guy.
He has a
If anyone would have a truffle guy, Nerman would have a truffle guy.
Yeah.
So, but yes, no yuzu.
Yeah, I know. What a lot.
And someone commented to me that they were on Twitter. Someone was tweeting. Oh, sorry, on X. It's fucking Twitter. I don't give a shit. It's fucking. We're gonna do what Elon does to his child. He does it in a negative context when he dead names his child. We, however, in a positive context, are going to dead name the website and call it Twitter. So yeah, it's Twitter. Someone tweeted at us that they were doing a checklist of citruses used. They were like, it was a very limited range of citrus.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, so where yuzu wasn't a hit on the drinking game card, if you were playing along, you were getting very drunk every time they referred to lemon as classic. Because it's a constant runner. I kind of feel like, for me, especially off the back of last week where people might have been a bit thrown and a bit all over the place, this week there was a lot of a trust lemon, a trust lime. These are the flavors that I know and trust and can get into the bakes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just do those really well. And like Darren said to Neil, when Neil unfortunately gave the producer some catnip, you judge a chef by the quality of their lemon tart. And everyone was like, I'm going to do a lemon tart.
You don't want to judge Massimo. He dropped his.
No, Massimo dropped his lemon tart. Yes. Oops, I dropped the lemon tart. Anyway, it's the citrus week.
Yes.
So we started off this week, and what a refreshing change. We started off this week, and Nat was Cal, and Cal was Nat.
No, one was the fall guy, and one was the straight guy.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like that, but that's the way they've done it this season.
Yeah, I liked it.
They switched it around. First thing we see is Cal not working out when life gives you lemons. Yeah.
I think I'd prefer like a lemon curd over a lemonade.
100%.
Particularly if it's the American style lemonade. That's just lemon water with sugar in it, isn't it? Essentially. Americans are going to come.
No, it's sugar water with lemon in it.
Oh, my apologies.
Although I'd be interested to see what you could do by making an animal out of lemons.
That could be fun.
Mm.
That could be fun. Look, I think an animal out of lemons, there was an opportunity to combine the two of them later on when Cal came up with a orangutan.
That's something that Ella's done. Like she did like a lemon meringue pie, but with like a little like orangutan monkey face with like the mane of hair as the meringue. It was
Well, this is the thing. You can make a very large orangutan and make it lemon. There we go.
Or a dolph lemon.
Dolph lemon. Ooh.
Like it's like a dolphin with a lemon in it.
So anyway, the signature.
A giblemon.
A lemon.
A lemon.
A lemon. A lemon. Oh God.
A hippopotamus.
A hippopotamus. No, we're moving on. We're moving on because you're just going to. The episode is over now. We're just going to fit the word lemon into animal names. Done.
We're going to awkwardly squeeze lemons into animals. Just don't make it sound not dirty.
Sorry, we're going to awkwardly squeeze lemons into animals. Okay. All right. So the signature, 8 individual citrus tarts. Like I really enjoy. This is what a signature should be.
Yep.
Like this is a standard. And not in a boring way. This is what a signature should be. Like not an open brief. It's 8 individual citrus tarts, identical. Can I just say I think a lot of people appreciated that I didn't put the word zesty on the drinking game. But I value like the medical system in Australia, and I don't want to shut down ERs.
Too many stomach pumps.
Oh,
there are only so many livers to go around.
Yes. Transplant levels need to be a bit higher before we go anywhere near that. I'm noticing a bit of a trend too.
Yeah.
Rachel uses the word zesty a lot.
Okay.
Like even outside of this week.
I'm looking at
another word for zesty?
So, yeah. Effervescent. That's not really zesty. Perky. Peppy. Animated.
Do we want Rachel Koo saying I want peppy flavors?
I want a perky tart.
I want a perky tart. Don't we all? Don't we all?
Well, you married one.
But
Congratulations.
But the other thing I'm noticing is she says the word zesty a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Every time they cut to Darren on a bake, if it involves any form of pastry, he has to say that he wants a crispy shell.
Mm.
There's a very set, what do you want? And she's like, zesty. And he's like, crispy.
Look, they're still finding what they like.
It feels like
the Bakeoff world.
It feels like they're seven dwarves names. Rachel's zesty, Darren's crispy. So, but I mean, of the two of them, I'm actually really on board with the Darren crispy shell idea because yes, 100%. You don't want a soggy shell. 2 hours to make it.
Yes.
Now, what would you have made to start with?
Oh fuck.
Don't you love it when I do that to you?
Yep. Oh, actually, no. I have thought about this a little bit. I'm thinking like standard sort of tart shell, a pistachio and orange blossom frangipane on the base.
Yep.
And then set atop that would be like a blood orange and rose curd or mousse.
Oh my God.
I like that.
Don't ask him first.
What would you make?
No, I couldn't. Well, no. I wouldn't make anything. I just watch.
Can I just say, I was very happy while there wasn't yuzu and there was like a restricted number of flavors. I was happy with the rise of blood orange. Like,
oh look, look, if you say blood orange 3 times in a mirror, I appear behind you and then comedically slip over and sprain my groin. So it's like it's like top tier citrus for me.
So we start with, speaking of blood orange, we start with like Sandra got the first moment that I absolutely loved in this episode. They cut to the bench and Sandra's cutting the butter. And she's cutting the butter diagonally. No. You're going to say that for everything this episode, aren't you?
That's what she said.
So she's cutting the butter. She's cutting the Lurpak, but she's cutting it diagonally and like really roughly. Like there wasn't like a peel of the butter and then she's just like chop diagonally through the wrapper. There's like roughly breaking it apart. I can imagine some executive at Lurpak sobbing, going, "Don't treat our product like that.
Don't chop the dinosaur, Daddy."
Delicately, treat it delicately. And Sandra's just like chop through diagonally, rip it apart.
No, Sandra's done her timings and she's got no fucking time to
unwrap.
You should have seen her get into the flour. She was just like a machete over the top of the jar.
Flour everywhere. She's just like 1 cup. She's got a whole bag everywhere for 1 cup left.
Throw it into the air, slice through it with samurai swords. The perfect amount falls into the bowl.
The flour just drops into the cup.
Sandra, the kitchen samurai. No wonder she needs that science every week. You need the safety. They cut to Reem, who just goes, "I love citrus," and like, whenever they cut to someone to randomly say they love the ingredient of the week, that's danger. That was the first sign that I had when they cut to Reem, and Reem's like, "I love citrus," and she reiterated this a number of times through the episode, and I do wonder if, as the episode went on, it was less out of love for citrus and more out of reaffirming to herself. You know, I love citrus. And by the end, it was like, I love citrus. I love citrus. Citrus, I love it.
Like that catering show moment where one of them's like, and I'll said it before and I'll say it until I'm literally dead. I love citrus.
Accurate. Yeah. Accurate. Now, Alona kept it to lemons because lemons were her favorite thing in terms of those flavors. She's like, I love lemon. I love a lemon. I love lemon flavors.
Okay, she shouldn't say that because Bernard's like, lemons are your favorite thing.
Yeah, Bernard's like, really?
Well, but Bernard is a sourpuss.
He really is.
Okay.
Bernard is love. Bernard is light. Who are we kidding? He's not love or light.
Lemons were cats. It would be Bernard. All right.
Yeah, he would be. That's beautiful work. Now it was her birthday.
Yes, late season Virgo Novus Virgo energy.
So she's made a lemon palais breton, lemon creme pat, lemon curd onto the palais breton base with a tempered chocolate leaf.
Ooh, yes, I liked how hers looked. Can you do pastry that thick all the time, Aaron, or is that just like not a thing?
I think in this case, the pastry that thick makes sense because it wasn't like a shelled tart. It was like the tart is like a long biscuity thing, and she baked it in tart shell, so in a tart case. So yes,
So
for
really,
this.
people are just holding out on the puff pastry with me.
Yes.
Like this is
Yeah.
that's where I'm going. Okay,
You've been robbed.
I've been robbed. I want a slab of puff.
No,
Not
we're
a
moving on.
euphemism.
Not a euphemism.
Not a euphemism.
This whole episode is going to be called Not a Euphemism. So Reem was making this was an interesting way that Reem came about this one. Finger lime and rosemary. And she said in her first bit, before later on going, no, I've tried it and they taste fine.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they looked the same color and I thought they looked good together. So that's why I put them together. So finger lime custard, white chocolate ganache, and then a rosemary short crust.
That makes sense because when you do go out for your modern gin sampling, and I know this is, or non-alcoholic gin sampling, like the botanical flavors, go with your gin, and lime goes with gin.
Citrus and rosemary makes perfect sense. So concept wise, this sounds great.
Yeah.
It was very green.
It was disturbingly green.
And literally I think they were right when we get to the judging. It was the wrong green.
Look, guys, it's not easy being green.
It's not. But it was they were right when they said it's not a palatable green, and it kind of wasn't.
Look, green.
Yeah, it was less lime green and more goosebumps green.
Yes.
It was less lime, more slime.
It was more melted Shrek. It kind of was.
The fungus you see growing on the or the fungus you see growing on sloths.
We've described your bake beautifully, Reem, and I hope you're enjoying it. Now, Sandra was using. How did she pronounce it? Because I can't remember. I can only ever say it properly.
Chipotle.
Chipotle.
Yes. And I love the way they didn't correct her at the bench. They got Cal to correct it in the post, where she just went Chipotle.
Poor Sandra.
Chipotle chili in her blood orange curd inside the chocolate heart shell, and everything she said outside of the pronunciation of Chipotle, I was here for. That just sounds.
I will say the pronunciation of Chipotle this season just gave me trigger warnings for last season and Dolce de Leche.
Oh, Dolce de Leche. Ooh. Oh, that was brilliant. We got a million different versions of that. It's fantastic. None of them from anyone with Spanish heritage.
I do, but hearing Sandra later on when she was talking about mandarins, she's like, "Is that how it's pronounced in Australia?" Because I think, and I'm just wondering if she was so caught up in her head about pronouncing Chipotle correctly.
Chocolate. Is that it? Chocolate. Lemon. Lemon.
What are the conditions of her getting citizenship or a visa here?
Know what a Lamington is.
Yeah. Pronounce things properly or we'll kick you out. That's a very Philip Ruddock.
There's a little checklist of celebrities that are either an Australian or New Zealander, and do we take credit for them? Yes or no?
Yes, exactly. Russell Crowe, has he thrown a phone or has he won an Oscar? He's won an Oscar. He's Australian. He's thrown a phone. Damn Kiwi. Very important. So then we get Nat coming to the bench, and she gift wrapped a lemon for Alona's birthday.
Oh, well, yes. Happy birthday, Alona.
I wasn't sure if that's the one you wanted. If it's a lemon, but ching.
She kept the receipt.
I loved what Laura did.
Mm-hmm.
So going for the vertical tarts with the lime and gin curd, and a short crust ring. Mm-hmm. I like that she thought outside the box. I think about halfway through the challenge, she started to wonder if she probably should have for timing purposes, but it's added an extra layer of challenge.
Yeah.
But what we got was an adaptation, which I love.
Look, I'm
just it was good that when she realized that the filling wasn't quite doing what she needed to do and she was a bit shaky, she's like, you know what, I'm going to pivot.
Yeah.
It's good to be able to pivot.
Yeah, I'm just now seeing the potential for Lyra pastries. so Lyra is like the big hoop, kind of like suspended. That if you're not doing pole dancing and getting bruised enough of that, and you really want bruising up your butt crack, that's what you do.
Yeah, you go hang off a hoop.
Yeah, I have so much fucking respect for pole dancers and Lyra people and anyone that uses upper body strength because
anyone who uses upper body.
Yeah, well, you there.
But yeah, no, I love the fact that she did the pivot, and again, the ability to pivot at this point of the competition is something that's really valuable and really vital. And just in general in baking, it's a very useful thing when bakes go, you know what? No. And the way that she's like, this isn't working. I don't have the steady hands for this. I'm just going to blitz it back up and we'll just repipe it. And the fact that she worked that out early enough that she could.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, and you would know this, obviously, it's very easy to tunnel vision the challenge and go, no, this is what I have.
This is my vision. This is my moment. Being able to like catch something early on and then quickly think of like, you know, how can I make this work? That's still roughly what I was going for. I
just thought of another fun thing to do with Laura's tarts, like a claw machine. So instead of like when you go to like the fancy,
you're thinking of the ring prizes with like the ticket numbers on them.
Yes. So like when you're at a fancy dinner, right? You don't want to get your fingers like dirty because they can't just bring you a lemon bowl. You know, that's not what happens.
The only way to wash your hands.
What if you have like a little like cocktail fishing rod? So as the waiter goes past, you just hook yourself a pastry. Just whip it up.
Laura, there's a whole cafe in this.
And it means that if the fucking, you know, when you see something good go past, but you can't quite catch the waiter's attention, you just cast out. You just
Laura, there is a whole cafe in this concept. You're welcome. Like, open it up, start it tomorrow. Like, literally just have all the pastries on Yunchar carts going up and down the restaurant, and everyone can just like cast for their dessert. You know, if you can't catch, you don't eat. It's the hunter-gatherer method come to life.
Yep, and just, you know, in the middle, instead of having like the chefs and stuff there, remember that game you had as a kid, the fish game, where the fish would come out?
When the fish come up and the magnet in the mouth and the...
Yes!
I loved that.
Laura, this concept is yours. Open the cafe immediately. It will be there. You're welcome. Yeah. You're welcome.
I'll even bring my own fishing rod.
Yeah. So now Adam went differently. So Adam made a lemon sponge rather than lemon curd, with a layer of lemon jam and the pastry shell topped with white chocolate ganache. What do we think of cake and a tart?
I'm a tart. I like cake and me. I'm here for it.
Look, at first I clutched my pearls about it a bit, and then sort of realized that, you know, when you're making like an entremet or something, you know, there's probably going to be a cake layer, a jam layer, and like a mousse or a cream. And so while at first I thought he was taking a massive risk, you know, it paid off. Like, they enjoyed it at the end, eh?
Yeah, and like Cal calling it a pastry turducken, which I like.
I do like that the baking community holds its breath to see how this tart turns out.
But it was one of those things where, like, when I saw it, and I think I mentioned to you when I saw it, I'm like, on one hand, I was like, kind of preferred that he did some form of curd in a more traditional sort of tart. But the counterpoint to that was that it's easier to get the citrus flavor to hold in the curd than it is in a cake where it might be diluted a bit. So he really actually gave himself an extra layer of issue of, I've really got to make sure that flavor comes through, because the cake might dilute the flavor out a little bit more than in a curd where it's going to be really punchy.
Yeah, and I think they mentioned during judging that there was like a soak to the cake. So, you know, like a sugar syrup or something that maybe had some extra flavor added to it to, you know, so that it wasn't just dry shell, dry cake.
Yeah, no, exactly. Neil. Now, poor Neil. Like, he didn't say this is my week.
Oh, no.
So points for that, Neil.
But he was still in the stratosphere around the sun.
Yeah, the baking gods heard this and went, he uttered what I refer to as producer catnip. You know, he was just talking about his tarts, and he goes, like, he loves them a lot. And he's like, yeah, this could be the world's best lemon tarts. The next thing you see is the drawing phase and the announcement of them as the world's best lemon tart. And I'm just like, oh, Neil, no.
Look, as someone who, you know, anoints himself in lime juice daily,
Yep.
you do not tempt the citrus gods, much like you do not tempt the Bakeoff gods, and Neil did both.
Yeah, he had a double god crossover. They're just sitting up at the Pantheon as above him going, you got this or have we got this? And they're like, how about we do this one together?
Yes.
Synergy. Synergy. So I did like when they said, like, when he did it was raspberries on top, blind baking the shell, and when he announced he was blind baking the shell, one of my favorite random things happened. Darren Purchase clapped like a 5-year-old. I was like, I'm gonna blind bake the shell, and Darren's like, woo! And like was very excited 5-year-old. And I absolutely Cal's description of him in the technical as a man in a panda suit,
No,
a panda in a man suit was perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, oh, he's so excited by everything.
He does.
I love that too. Like, I absolutely love that he's excited by everything. He's not, you know, jaded. He's just like, no, this is brilliant. I
He's
love
not
this.
too cool for school.
No.
He's us. He's our people on screen. The uncool finally represented in the very cool Bakeoff shed. That's
Like
all.
proud dad energy.
Yes.
Very much proud dad energy. So we got a time call that was like Nat was back on form this episode. Like last week was then everyone was a bit all over the place.
Yeah.
I thought Nat had a really good week this week, especially what I love to time call. You have as long as it takes me to make a cup of tea that goes completely cold because I forget where it is. You have 1 hour.
Look, Kristie, you're saying, oh, you're on podcast with 2 teachers. Like, how many cups of tea or coffee in your career, Chris, have you left at your desk and just had to drink cold later?
Yeah, I mean, the benefit for me is I drink like coffee, so that's easier than like someone who has it with milk.
Oh.
But, you know,
It's where you got to judge whether or not the curd.
the answer is usually I get the coffee in the morning, and by like 2:30 in the afternoon, I go back to it and go, oh, that's right, that's there.
But you've also made several other cups
Yeah,
on
during
the
the day.
way.
Make a bunch during the day, come back to the original cup at the end of the day and go, well, let's finish it.
Oh, just like, oh, little treat, didn't really.
Exactly.
That's
I just left myself little prizes all over the staff room.
Look, it's summer. Everyone loves an iced coffee. I got told that iced coffees are the choice of queers, so I feel really good because I just instinctively get iced coffees. So, which is one way I get around the whole letting it go cold. It's like I buy it pre-chilled.
Oh, look, and it's also nearly pumpkin spice season, so pumpkin spice like iced latte.
I need to admit I've not had pumpkin spice yet, and I feel like I'm letting all the white women down. Like the middle-aged, mediocre white women, I need to get myself.
You need to sort yourself out.
Yeah. This is.
As a community, they're already risking shunning you. So,
is that?
Do you want to be invited to bake sales?
Just to purchase, not necessarily to cook.
We also got, speaking of Nat having a good week, we also then got Nat helping put the tarts in the fridge for Laura, and then guarding the fridge with her life. It was a big one. It was a big one for the Smeg fridges this episode. It was a big one for Smeg fridges. We'll get to the
disco fridge.
the disco fridges in a bit, but it was a big one for Smeg fridges. We also got them redoing Dirty Dancing. With the I've had the lime of my life. I wanted to see them do the full run.
Oh yeah, I tried thinking of a nobody puts baby in the corner pun, but I just
it was really hard. I was trying to work that one out too, and it wasn't quite working. But I wanted to see them do the full, the dance down the shed, and then do the run and the leap and the lift. They could have done the whole thing. Who cares about baking at this point? Just recreate Dirty Dancing. You got 1 hour to go, but just put your bakes on hold, everybody. We need you all for the dance scene. Everybody in for the dance scene.
I mean, they could use the blood orange for another scene.
No.
Dancing.
No, we are moving on.
Everyone remembers the lift. No one remembers the... Anyway, moving on.
Moving on. So let's get to the judging. Was there anything else from the actual challenge that stuck out to you, Aaron? Or
no, like it seemed to go fine. Yeah.
Neil was a bit worried about the tarts when they came out, but Neil has also said consistently, like, the presentation. It's really weird. Neil has said consistently presentation's not his thing, while presenting some of the prettiest bakes in the season, which I think is weird. Like, this episode, the narrative around Neil seemed to be his presentation's not always the greatest thing in the world. Cut back to that white chocolate, like, tiered cake in week 1, and, like, he's presented some beautiful things.
Yeah, but he does choose the little metal balls from Coles quite a lot.
He does.
The little ball bearings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's his engineer background. He just really likes ball bearings.
I don't know why I'm criticizing. Like, I quite like those. But the thing I love about them most is that they entice you into. You always like, oh, they'll taste good. No, not this time. They're still breaking my teeth.
They always feel like
you always think, oh, that's going to be tasty, and it's just crunchy.
It's like it's lead shot. I'm just eating lead shot. It's great. This is what it must have been like to be a Civil War veteran. Like, we're out of food. What are we doing, everybody? We're just eating the lead shot. Sweet. Cool. Right. So the judging. So Alona, they said they looked amazing and professional. The piping was gorgeous, delicious and great pastry texture. The cream was smooth and tangy. And Darren gave us all a hit on the drinking game with the "I'd serve those in my shop." Now, still can't work out if that's supposed to be praise or an insult, given that he closed Birch and Purchase.
Maybe we're still open at
I think it's the new Maggie nudge.
I think it is, but I like the idea of "I'd serve those in my shop," and then the follow-up they always miss out is, "But I won't because I closed it." So that little, there's like, we all think Darren is absolutely wonderful and nice and the most amazingly lovely human being, but there's that little bit of snark where it's like, "But I can't because I closed it," and they just keep cutting it out. They're like, "Darren, we want you to be pure," and he's like, but I like doing that. It's poking them, and they've just made it lovely.
It's when he goes from being the panda bear to
Dark Darren.
No, what was that? Sanchi, the slightly aggressive
bear. Shirty, the slightly aggressive bear.
Slightly aggressive Darren.
So this is a late show reference for everyone listening from 1991, 1992. Of their version of Big Ted and Humphrey was Shirty, the slightly aggressive bear, who at the end of the series was revealed to be Russell Crowe from his Romper Stomper era. He literally pulled the head off, and it was Russell Crowe beating everybody on the setup. So anyway, there's a reference for about 3 people listening to the podcast.
You're welcome.
Neil. They said it was simple, so it needs to be perfect, and then immediately looked down and went, "There's a few pastry cracks there," and it's like, it's like you could see the moment when Neil's heart broke. But they then said the cream was smooth. They said though that it was either overcooked or the oven was too high.
Yeah, and he did try to sort of blast them towards the end to make sure that they would be cooked.
Yeah,
I think I had a similar problem in my episode 7 with my baked custards, and just trying to ensure that they were cooked meant that they were overcooked.
But on the plus side, Rachel did say that the pastry cases were absolutely excellent. And look, we've sort of come to expect that from Neil. He's really good at those sort of technicalities. Laura, now Darren didn't think there was necessarily enough filling for the shell, but that was obviously going to be because of the pivot from putting the inside in there to actually piping it in. There's only so much piping you're going to get into each of them.
You got to fit the hook, Darren.
Yeah, where are you going to put the hook, Darren? Like, if you're going to pick these things up, how are you going to get the hook in there? They said the curd was delicious. The texture was smooth, and Rachel thought they were absolutely fun. So Rachel's on your side. I think Rachel would be on board with this fishing restaurant.
I expect that's how they do their hors d'oeuvres in Coo Cottage.
Exactly.
Let's go fishing.
Let's go fishing at Coo Cottage. Yes. Yeah, well, the amuse-bouche pond is a thing. And, like, Rachel understands the amuse-bouche pond. So now, Sandra, they loved the shape. They loved how thin she got the pastry as well. And the blood orange marmalade, they said, gave it that extra little kick on her tarts. And that looks really
marmalade's not a super tart.
No,
you've got to do something with it. Add something like, I'd always add a little bit of lemon juice to like brighten it.
Yeah.
Having that marmalade, that intensity of a marmalade is a cool idea.
They looked incredible.
Yeah.
Then Reem, they said the green was a little bit angry. Just be careful about the color. The pastry though.
The tart was hulking out.
It was hulking out. But How
I
thin,
say
and
this
this
with
is
all love, like, it's
and
just
this is
colour
this is a
green.
trend we've seen with Reem. That pastry, like how
Mm.
thin she got that pastry.
Oof.
She's
And there's
really,
little bits on top too.
yeah, it was super delicate. And like she's again, it's not the first time she's done really good, delicate pastry, so she's got that nail.
Mhm.
They did say now this was I really liked this bit because we've talked a lot about the advice and how that Darren doesn't just give generic advice; he gives really good practical follow-ups. And he said, you know, the pastry was amazing. The curd is a little bit overbaked, however. You needed more curd in the tart. Now, most of the time they'd stop there, but Darren didn't stop there. He went, and it wasn't just because of the lack of filling and I wanted more filling, but if you'd filled the thing up more with curd, it wouldn't have overbaked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is where I really love Darren's feedback because he doesn't just give you a generic, that's a bit overbaked or I needed more curd. He explains why he needed more curd.
Yeah.
And the technicality behind
Something
it.
you've done well, something that
Yep.
could have been better, and what you need to work on for next time.
Exactly. It's very teachery.
And it's not, it's not personal. It's not vindictive. It's so practical. And, these are people who are on television volunteering their time in perpetuity.
Yes.
It's not like they're getting paid the big bucks. I mean, even the bloody winner doesn't get paid anything apart from in a really nice.
They win an amazingly lovely Smeg kitchen.
No, but still, like, to get those little bits and pieces from bloody professionals is bloody
That's
awesome.
really good. And I love the level of feedback. It's really good. It's really precise. It's not generic TV speak. It's actual, I'm helping you, like you're baking this, I'm watching you, I've got the background, here's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. It's really been one of the development. And it's not that Matt and Maggie didn't do that. It's just that like Darren's really he's very good at giving that advice in a way that's succinct and
that constructive criticism, things to work on rather than.
What he said. It's what he said when we had him on the pod, and he's like, I look at it as all of this is a chance to help people get better. It's a chance to help people and use my experience and give them the tools to do things better.
When I dropped into, because Birch Purchase, they were closing down, so they were selling some of their equipment and stuff. I dropped in and said hi, and he just gave me some tips on how to temper chocolate, and I'm just like, sweet, thank you.
By the way, that chocolate was excellent.
Thank you.
Yes,
I'm glad you like it.
It was absolutely brilliant. So, I still have the chocolate there, so you can have some of the chocolate.
Oh, thank you.
No, I ate Nerman's. I haven't opened mine yet. I ate Nerman's.
Okay, all right, smart. Good job.
I'm not stupid.
No.
Adams, beautifully presented. The pastry was super fine. They loved the tarts. The jam was the star of it, and Gray gave a great citrus tang. They weren't sure about the cake initially, and Rachel's like, I was a bit worried about that, but it worked really well. They were absolutely glowing in their praise for those tarts.
It seemed like a risk to do something different the way he did, but paid off.
Yep. So the technical. Now, I loved her thing about the Nat's thing about the confusion on it. It's like when my cat gives me a tax form. I do like the idea that her cat is the accountant.
Yes. We see the pictures. Party hard.
Party hard, yes.
One person parties like that. It's an accountant.
And this is where we got the comment of Darren being a panda in a human suit, which, yes, very much he is. Now, Darren's advice on this one was repeat, repeat, and repeat again. One shot only. Can I just point out as well, the walkaway bit, I've never seen one baker be more impressed with a joke than Laura. When they're off to write a complaint letter to the council, even though they're the ones that missed bin night. And Laura's laugh indicated life experience. Because everyone sort of giggled a bit, but Laura openly was, and I'm like, that's a lived experience. Someone around her has done that. She found that far too funny. So it was a citrus roulade, sweet juniper cream, citrus sponge, gin and tonic jelly, lime and lemon jelly segments, followed by a Bootylicious, ready for this jelly joke.
Yeah.
Cal living her best life. So, and I loved her. She did that and then went, it's like Beyonce was in the room.
She said fruitylicious though, like she took
Yes.
it even a higher step.
Yes. She said fruitylicious. 2.5 hours. Adam sort of expressed my view on this when he said, anything that's rolled, I always find challenging.
Fair
Amen.
enough. I've only just gotten my head around making a roll cake and not panicking, so we're good.
Yeah.
What about
So
sausage rolls?
yeah, but they're different.
How?
Like that's not a roll that you can't undo, for example. Like, and no one's really like the pastry doesn't tend to crack when you roll.
Okay.
Whereas
right.
a cake splits all over the place
Okay.
and falls apart. And poor Neil, like, well, I was going to say it right now, poor Neil, his one just everywhere he rolled it, it just collapsed more.
Mm. And then having to roll it again in like a layer of agar jelly.
Yeah,
Oh.
that was the thing. Like you did the first roll, like that's great, and then the agar jelly, which, as they all pointed out, was really temperamental and quite, easy to break.
Mhm.
Not one roll, but 2 rolls, and neither of them could you undo. Like it's like that's it. You've got to get it right twice. So it was very neon, but he made it specifically for the challenge.
I thought it was gorgeous.
It was stunning.
And he did say that.
And like I saw it and immediately thought like, oh, Alona will do well with this one because it looks retro.
Yes.
She's like, I've got the tablecloth of this at home.
Yeah,
And yes, it's plastic and clear as well.
this is my tablecloth. Yes. But no, like Darren making that for the challenge.
Yeah, and he mentioned that in the podcast that he was really excited to be able to like make things specifically for TV shows like this and MasterChef and stuff. It's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, I love the idea of sitting around and going, not just which one of my bakes can I pull out of here, but like going, what can I come up with?
How can I torture them?
Yeah, what have I
This
not
is a
done?
bespoke torture.
I like the way he goes, I haven't even cooked this.
A boutique torture, if you will.
Oh, and I think because of that, because this is something that has it happened on my season. It's already happened once or twice this season. Is I don't know if it's because like they've already planned what the technicals are going to be or whatever, but this one seemed like it was more sort of fit for everyone involved. Like the fact that they're using agar instead of gelatin. Yep. They let Reem use like is it seedlip or something, like the non-alcoholic, like
and that inclusive level of baking. We were a bit critical earlier in the season of not necessarily letting people not use gelatin.
Mm-hmm.
But this is exactly what we talked about last year. We talked about it a bit, and now this year the idea of that inclusive baking. I mean, agar sets differently, obviously, to gelatin, so it's a different prospect. So you couldn't just give Reem, if you wanted to avoid gelatin, you couldn't really just give Reem agar and everyone else gelatin, because it changes as you know better than we do, changes your compound. And like as Neil pointed out, the difference between the two of them is gelatin you can
Heat.
melt it back down again. Agar won't do that. So agar's a tough mistress.
Whereas like the non-alcoholic gin tastes like gin, like it's all the same flavor notes of gin. It's just not fermented.
It's not fermented, yeah.
So I really like that though. And I also really love the fact that Darren gave the instruction, make a sponge.
Yeah. Oh.
It's perfect. Like you've got to, and like, of course they cut to Neil being the one to say, if you can't make a sponge by this point of the competition, you're not going to be in the competition for very long.
Just tempting the Bakeoff gods again.
He had an Icarus week.
He's just like throwing chum into the water.
Yeah. Again,
blooding the
citrus gods. The citrus gods have already started. They've had that conversation early on, and they're like, "Are you or us?" And the citrus gods have gone, "We'll start this." And then this got to here, and the baking gods went, "No, our turn." So the baking gods have stepped in and gone, "Look, you got the first one. We'll do the second one. All right, we've got this split. This is a working community we're working on here." So we get the disco fridges. It's the only way to put it. We get the disco fridges.
Yeah.
Now
they need a new song though.
They do need a new song.
Maybe a bit of "I Will Survive." Maybe not one that like you don't want any of the typical disco like heat related for a fridge though.
I think
you don't want "Burn Baby Burn."
No, you don't. chill
No, but
baby,
what's
chill.
cooler than being cool? Ice cold.
Ice cold, exactly. All right.
Okay, no ladies.
Hey! But you
No,
don't want to break this down.
No, I want to see Adam and Neil going on tour as DJ Disco Fridge and DJ Disco Butterscotch.
Yes. Yes, DJ Disco Fridge and DJ Disco Butterscotch. That is a thing. That tour has to happen.
All right.
We can be the opening act. I'm happy to be the opening act for them.
Excellent.
I would also like to suggest maybe, just maybe, Smeg, you might want to include a little button on your fridge that means you could stop that from happening. Like, I know I've got the fridge open. I'm just going to push this button for 5 minutes so I don't get annoyed by it. Only 5 minutes.
Yeah, but who at home is standing in their fridge doing that? Like,
Yeah, but who at home is also not like loading up the fridge?
okay,
And
yes.
they've got the door open while they're loading up the fridge, and the fridge starts beeping at you. I'm like, I know, but I have a bag of groceries
like
here.
a snooze button.
Yeah,
Okay.
it should be the fridge snooze button. Like, if you keep it open longer than that, it should ignore it. But I also love, like later on, Laura was like, I know, fridge. I know. Just, I know. Like, Laura by that point had no time for the fridge.
But that's all of us, when the washing machine's having the beep, you're like, oh, I'm coming.
Yeah.
All right.
So Cal walks over and talks
Tell
about
me about
Adam's
your
relaxed
life.
face.
How you're ignored.
Adam's relaxed face, which was also his frightened face. I would probably suggest that, Adam, you should probably have 2 different faces for that, because that's going to confuse people.
Mhm.
Are you frightened or are you relaxed? There's a very different vibe going on there. Probably change the face. Just a suggestion. Just a suggestion. Then we got a Cal time call for the ages. If I have 5 lemons and you give me 3 oranges, how much time do they have? Nat's like, 90 minutes? 90 minutes. I totally guessed that.
And there are some maths nerds out there just using that as an actual fucking, what's it called? Equation.
Actual equation.
Ugh.
Yeah, like word problems on maths tests from school. Like that would be the answer.
Well, I've had this conversation, not to get all education nerdy for a second,
Okay.
but we actually had a conversation around that with maths results and like evaluating maths results of students and going, well, the maths results seem to be a bit lower. And we're like, yeah, but if you look at the problems they got wrong, a lot of them are really complex, wordy problems. It's not the equation problems. It's language and order of operations with language. So it's not like, they can't do base multiplication. It's written in a way like, if I have 3 oranges and 2 apples, what time does the train get to Central? And they're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't work for me. Like,
yeah.
So that's actually a thing.
I know.
Now, we got an
sorry.
example from Laura.
I found a new trigger.
We got an example from Laura of what the shed can do to somebody. Where she took the cake out.
Warning shot to Neil. If you're not listening to us, Neil, we're going to go for your friend Laura. It'd be bad if something happened to her, wouldn't it?
But she took the sponge out and she's reading the thing and she's like, lightly golden. No, and then she took it out. But no, that is lightly golden. I'm sure that's lightly golden. And then puts it on like, no, and then she uttered the phrase that I think is the one phrase, and again, I think you can probably back me up on this, Aaron, the one phrase that bakers really need to go with a lot of the time in the shed, which is no, commit.
Yeah, just commit. Yeah, it's Laura, how golden is your sponge? Like,
yes, exactly. She is the latest member of the How Golden Is Your Sponge crew. Pioneer founding member here.
I'm junior executive vice president.
The position you gave yourself.
Yes. Now, I'm going to give the viewer's perspective on this before you can give the baker's perspective on this. I thought that the jelly being that fiddly was hilarious. Now, from a baker's perspective, Aaron.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, I'm no expert with agar, so the idea of having to move around lots of little jelly bits terrifies me. Like, I can't imagine the time they were having. What was Alona saying? Like trying to do neurosurgery. She was not having it.
Yeah.
It was neurosurgery on a lemon and a lime. And the way you had to cut the different parts of it out too. So the middle for the lemon and the other little bits for the lime. And like Reem, you could see Reem was losing the will to live when she was trying to pick the sides out. I was watching Reem just go, yeah, this is great. This is fine. And she's like, ironically enough, given that, of course, she made Operation for Biscuit Week. And there she is using tweezers trying to pick something up that wouldn't go. So we then went, I like the way they did the contrast of Adam going, who doesn't like gin? And then immediately cut to Reem talking about the fact that she's Muslim and therefore doesn't drink. But we did also get Adam being very Adam in that he's like, who doesn't like a bit of gin? Cut to Adam having a swig. Forget booze and a bake, which this was. Yeah, forget booze and a bake, which this was. This was booze and a baker. And I've really enjoyed watching. I've enjoyed watching Adam's. I'm going to eat while I'm at my bench. I'm going to drink while I'm at my bench.
Fuck yeah!
You can't fucking stop me. Like he gives no shits. He's like, no, what's this? Oh, gin. Yeah, we're great. The other day when he was doing the booze and was like, had the shot, went, that's really strong. Perfect. So Laura and Alona then got the disco fridge. Then we got to the sponge. I didn't expect that the word lengthways would cause as much drama as it did.
You saw how the shed fucked with people's, perception of golden. Then questioning, what's width, what's length, what's height, what's up, what's down.
The good news was we had what I referred to. We had what I referred to as Vitruvian Nat.
Vitruvian Nat.
Yeah, Nat turned herself into Vitruvian Man and walked around the shed measuring width and length with her arms flying out.
She did look like she was at IKEA.
Yeah, Nat was measuring for a lounge.
That's what you do at IKEA. You get one of the tiny little measuring tapes that they give out. And you've been doing, man, will this fit in my lounge room?
Yes.
I always love those tiny little tape measures because they're not the size of any piece of furniture in IKEA.
No, you need.
Like, what are you doing? You're going to tie them together. But no, I loved Vitruvian Nat as a measuring system. I think that Vitruvian Nat should now be a measuring system for everything.
Americans will take her. They'll use anything apart from fucking
metric.
Metric system.
America would use Natalie Tran as a measuring system over metric any day of the week.
It's just 100 Vitruvian Nats to the next station. Fine.
15 thimbles to the gherkin.
The train is traveling at 15 Vitruvian Nats a second.
How much do we hate the metric system?
1 million Vitruvian Nats worth.
It did also very much have the read of, turn the front side topward, as an instruction. But we got Adam cutting it and then going, I think I did this wrong, and then recutting it the other way. So he basically mangoed it.
Yes.
Like he ended up cutting it to little squares. If he'd rolled the sponge the other way, it would have done one of those mango peels where you can cut individual squares of sponge off.
Yeah. My mum, when she was serving us up mango for dinner, breakfast. Who the fuck knows?
Then we got Alona's face when she tasted the juniper in the cream.
Look, juniper is an interesting taste. I just also want to give a shout out. So if anyone's looking for any interesting herbs and stuff to use in food stuff, a friend of mine owns a little shop in Penrith called the Cauldron of Wellbeing. She's an actual naturopath. So all of her herbs and stuff there, while they're for witchcraft supplies, they're also food grade. So I bought my lovely husband some heather.
Which I put into shortbread.
You put into shortbread. I do have some food grade juniper here.
Hang on, I'm going to. Ready? Juniper berry.
Oh God! Oh no! Why? Don't. What? Did you just swallow it whole? Why would you do that?
No, I bit it.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. Just keep telling yourself that.
It is actually fine, but I'm not going to swallow it because I don't like the texture of the shell. But the flavour itself is actually quite nice. But no, juniper in that powder form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strong. Let's drink the gin. Wash it down with some gin.
Wash it down with some diluted juniper.
Yeah.
You know what will make this juniper more palatable? More juniper.
Yes.
You get a little bowl with a lemon wedge and some juniper berries floating in it.
Yep, and just wash your hands in it.
Palate cleanser.
Now we
Add
got
some prawn leftovers, you're fine.
Then we got to the roll.
Oh, okay.
So the roll, and Neil's comment was, "It's rolled. Is it rolled good? Probably not."
It did look rather flaccid. There's no other word for it.
I felt really bad for poor Neil. Like, he rolled his up, and then when he picked it up, it was just collapsing in a heap in his hands. Nothing worse, especially with there is something worse. Somebody filming you while it collapses in your hands, and you're moving it over to a sheet of jelly that may very well fall apart in your hands too.
Let's pop this.
Relatable content.
Oh no! And it's a poor Aaron. You guys can't see this, but Aaron has a look on his face which is very much PTSD.
You come across roles like that before, Aaron?
Oh, look, every so often.
Then they encased it in the jelly, as they do. Innuendo comment. Now, I like the fact that after all of this collapsing and rolling and all this stuff, we made the ends neat, which I think was, for Neil's in particular, felt a little bit like it was like dressing up a pig and putting lipstick on it. Because like it's all collapsing in the middle. I'm going to trim the ends. There we go. It's perfectly fine.
But you do, with Swiss rolls and that kind of thing, you do that to reveal the spiral pattern, or in this case, the downward spiral.
Neil's face was revealing the downward spiral all on its own. It didn't need help of a trim. I felt halfway through. We said about Reem gradually through the episode losing the will to live about citrus.
Mm-hmm.
You just felt poor Neil as this episode went on. He's like, "Yeah, that happened. Yep, that's another thing. Yep." And by the end of it, Neil was just like, "I don't really care at this point in time. Something's going to happen. I don't know what it is. Don't care. And look, I get it. I get that 100%. So the judging. Alona, they loved the look. The cream looked awesome. It was very tangy. The jelly texture was great. Said the cream was smooth. Rachel thought it was very much like Darren's. Adam looked well made. The jelly was shiny. The cream was airy. The flavor was delicious. Zesty flavor was definitely there. Again, much like Darren's. Reem's was rolled tightly, but the cream was over whipped. However, the jelly was great. Laura, the segments looked really vibrant. Good jelly. Cream was perfect, but needed more cream inside there. Neil, the filling wasn't as generous and as grainy, which I went, well, it was generous when he started, but it just kept on oozing out when he was rolling it. And that was his problem. They said the sponge was a bit cakey. The egg must have been an egg white fold issue. However, the jelly was again great. Sandra's colors were muted. As she said, I don't know what color this should be, but I'm just going with this. The tang of the lemon and lime was there. The sponge, it wasn't as sort of aerated, but the cream was very light. So the order was, so from last to first, Neil, Reem, Sandra, Laura, Alona, and Adam. Adam wins his third technical.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
I did forget to say, and this is another old reference, but I don't think I've heard the word repeat more than the Pete repeat ads back in that than when they were cutting out the little semicircles of limes and lemons.
Yes. So for anyone who's like gets that reference, please X us. No, tweet us. Fuck it, we're dead, not even yet. Yeah, like, because again, that's a. I do remember that commercial. It's a very old commercial.
It's very old.
Pete repeat. Yes, it's a very old commercial.
Yes, I'm gonna have it stuck in my head all day.
Yep. Good thing Aaron won't, because Aaron is looking thoroughly confused because, of course, he's sweet summer child.
It reminds me of like early Round the Twist where they used to joke about, oh, look, it's Pete. And then look at Linda and go, and it's Ray Pate.
And of course, for anyone who's listening, how do you find an Australian in an overseas country?
Have you ever?
Yeah, felt like this. You're standing in the middle of the crowd and you just yell that out, and somebody will yell out the end of it. All right, the showstopper, citrus meringue creation, which does sound like a challenge on RuPaul's Drag Race. What are we wearing this week? Yes, what are we wearing this week? Category is citrus meringue creation.
Extravaganza.
Let's be real.
Extravaganza, eleganza.
Extravaganza.
You know, the winning meringue will receive $100,000 from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I want them to screw the prizes up, and I want the winner of Australian Drag Race to get a Smeg kitchen, and the winner of Bakeoff to get an Anastasia Beverly Hills gift voucher. Just mix them up. So, I like the way that she goes, this could be a song, a dance, a hat, but it should probably be edible. So Nat was on board with us. Like, this is very much a category that should have been, you know, something from RuPaul.
Yes.
And this is where Cal said, for the love of God, will one of you make a large animal and call it a orangutan?
I've got Ella on speed dial.
Ella is probably, yeah, again, she did the first one. She's now making a bigger one. Check her
size.
Yeah, check her TikTok at some point. It'll be there. Check her Insta at some point.
She's going to be like, you know, that woman who makes cakes that look like supermarket ingredients?
Yes.
Except she's going to make a orangutan that she's going to go put in a zoo.
Yes.
And then she goes in with a saber. And people are like, no, don't kill the orangutan. And she's like,
Don't cut the orangutan.
Cake.
Yes.
It's an orangutan. It's
so
okay.
4 hours to do this challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And then Reem's comment was interesting. I like acidic things because you just add some zest and you make something different. I'm like,
yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. Just how she does. That's how she deals with acids.
Yeah, like the zest and the juice do different things, so she's not wrong.
No, it was just a really interesting way to put it.
It's TikTok speak, my love.
It is TikTok speak. You're right. Yes. So corner talk. Still don't like corner talk, but we were thinking about this last night.
Yeah.
There are ways to fix corner talk.
Yes. We took inspo from some old TV shows. My first idea was Mrs. Mangle Corner. So instead of being in the corner, they go to the window outside and peer in.
And peer in, like they're spying on their neighbours, like with bouncers just running around outside.
We thought we'll take this to the next level. We'll go to a hedge.
Yep.
And that's an Esme corner from A Country Practice.
Yep. And like peeking around the hedge, spying on people, going, what do you think about their bake? Esme corner could be good.
And then when they want to interact with people, they go into a Wilson.
Yes.
Where they, you know, just the hat.
Fence. And they look over the top of the fence. And then the piece de resistance, which is in the corner of the shed, build an opera box. And you put them in the opera box. And you get Stadler and Waldorf.
Yes.
Yes.
There are ways, if you're going to keep corner talk, and I don't like it, but if you're going to keep it, you're welcome.
Look, and if they're going to do Bake Off up late, we keep seeing that little shed outside. I'm like, just do it up like the 70s show.
Yes. Everyone, they're sitting in the four of them.
Smokier.
Yeah, the four of them sitting in a circle while there's smoke haze. You know, what did you think about their bake? It was great.
Baked.
I will say, I did actually like the joke this week of they're still trying to find out which one of us is Natalie. And Nat looks around and goes, which one of us is Natalie?
This episode, like all of Natalie's jokes, I think we were all Natalie. Like I related very hard to a lot of the things, like the tea, the confusion, the not knowing how to measure a couch.
Yes. Vitruvian Nat was every person.
All of it landed. It was lovely.
So, Alona, lemon and coffee meringue tower with ladyfingers and creme pat. Mm-hmm. This was interesting. A lot of people online were like, coffee and lemon as opposed to tea and lemon, and I'm like, no, that works because you have the bitter and you've got that would make sense. Not as naturally as people would automatically think tea and lemon.
Yeah,
but I thought it was fine.
I know, like, you know, you can do like black coffee and orange.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, lemon was probably a bit of a slightly different note that you normally do with the darker sort of coffee flavor, but
it could have also been making sure that the lemon came through. Like the orange might have been a bit too subtle or something.
Yes, well, that was their concern, was they wanted the citrus to be the star, not the coffee and not those layers. So that was, you know.
Yeah.
Then we got the Laura's mandarin and blood orange croquembouche. Now I thought this was a bold idea initially with a humid shed. We know what can happen inside that shed when you're trying to get things to set in place. And again,
again, she got the pivot. Yeah, she's like, The towel's not going to work. A wreath, though. A crock and wreath.
This was a good episode for Laura's character development, learning to pivot.
Yes. But I mean, and again, we talked about it before, but Blood Orange again making an appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And like when she said I'm doing the shoe with Mandarin and Blood Orange, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm here. I'm very here for this. And using the crackling to add that little extra bit of zesty kick as well. So again, one of the things I think people should take away from this episode when it comes to the citrus flavors is that the people that did it best added an extra little layer of extra citrus just to push the flavor home rather than going, this is the flavor, I put it in this bake and I'm going to leave it there. They all added something else to accentuate.
Yeah, like if I'm making like an orange curd or a blood orange or whatever, I'll add a little bit of lemon to give it a bit more zing. And if I'm making a lemon curd, I add a little bit of lime to give it more zing. It's like you don't want one note. You want a fucking symphony of citrus.
Like I know there's been some like feedback from people online about they only used a small amount of the available citruses, but I could imagine that availability and it being in season would also affect the taste. So like if I'm thinking like Butterfingers, like they're technically a citrus. Like if they're not in season, I don't know what they taste like, but I could imagine that they're maybe a bit more subtle and you wouldn't get as much punch out of them. Or clementines. I mean, everyone just wants the name Clementine. I just try to think of all the citruses that we didn't see. Like Mr. Citrus didn't make an appearance.
Now you said, yeah.
I know what time of year this was filmed because blood oranges were available. Like,
yes, exactly.
There's an issue with like a lot of the more bespoke citruses. You can only get them for like 2 months out of the year.
Yes. I also like when we were talking about you wanted a symphony of flavor. What about an opera of flavor? Segueta Ream. Segueta Ream. It was making an opera cake for the second week in a row. Blood Orange.
You already
had it done. I'm not saying she picked off that, but Blood Orange opera cake. I was terrified about this one for Ream because she was making the ice cream. Now, one ice cream setting in that shed.
Wow.
Which is also going to take a lot of your focus from getting other flavors working and other things because you've got to put so much work into making that work. Getting the flavor to stick in the ice cream, another challenge, especially when you've got to freeze it that fast. Yeah. That's another challenge. And then she seemed to sort of, and Darren flagged it at the time. When she was describing what she was doing, Darren went, it's got to look like a showstopper as well. And I think she got so focused on the layers and the opera that maybe she didn't consider the look as much. And then Darren sort of heard this, and I think Darren sort of tried to flag it with her and go, got to look like a showstopper too.
If we also
because like the finished product was like so like clean and neat and looked awesome.
Yeah.
I also think that taking into consideration like the kind of like peeling back the curtain of production and editing and stuff. Like we didn't see a lot of the ice cream making or anything like that. Yeah. So it just makes me wonder, did Ream, have a bit of issue with that? And, the time that may have been spent decorating the top of the cake and writing Ream was ear, as I'm sure the young cool kids do.
Well, I mean, look, the only slightly snarky thing I think I had said all night while watching this episode was at the end where Rachel was like, so it needed some decoration on top of it. And I'm like, do you mean like a circle or a swirl or the word opera?
It needed a coup twist.
Yeah, it needed the coup twist of a circle. If there was just a circle, it would have been great.
What she should have done is...
I'll never get over that.
...is run out like Neil did with a bit of a MasterChef moment and going to the garden.
Trim the tree.
I mean...
But not the blossom.
No, not the blossom.
Just a whole branch.
Just a branch.
Just a branch across the top of it.
Some twigs on top. Take that off.
Build a hut. Build a hut.
Get one of the lorikeets from outside. One of the birds.
Go and fetch a lorikeet and just sit it on top of Stay.
What's some dog hair and the dogs that run past. Just
like Nat. Nat, can you stand on this for me?
Vitruvian Nat.
Vitruvian Nat is my decoration, measuring it out. So, Sandra, a mandarin mojito cake. So Rachel was like, I love the flavors of this. And Darren was like, but is this going to really be a showstopper? And you can just see the look on Sandra's face going, I know what I'm doing. Trust me on this. And then she's like, no, the little kisses are going to be great. It's like, but is it really a showstopper? And she's like, Darren, I got you. I got you. Neil. So Neil went with the burnt Basque mousse cake with toasted mousse cover and lemon drip and a cheesecake inside it, because Neil has become the Flora of this series. And I think the judging for him was really interesting, because the judging of Neil in this episode, they basically said to him, stop floraing. And for those who don't know what floraing is, Flora was from a very earlier season of the Great British Bakeoff. And they'd get her to do a cake and she'd make a tower of macarons to go with it as an accompaniment. And as a result, her bakes were always a bit, because they were like, you're doing too much other things that don't matter. Just focus on what you're supposed to be doing. And Neil keeps throwing elements, as many elements as he can at the bake. And you get the feeling they're trying to tell him, just calm it and focus on the core bake rather than doing 15 million things to show you so she can do them all. Just do two really well. Because like the cheesecake and then the mousse and then and
he pulled out like a heat gun for this one.
Well, that was the thing too. We got the heavy duty. We got the heavy duty heat gun. We had competing styles. He had the heavy duty heat gun, and then Laura had the proper blowtorch. But we're looking at Laura's at one point. Just go steal Neil's heat gun. Like, just go steal the industrial heat gun and just. This is where we got the Cal's time call as well of the navel oranges and Air Force lemons. Who else would have a citrus? So what would the armies be?
Lime, green.
Yeah, maybe.
Space Force would be yuzu.
Yeah, Space Force would be yuzu.
The SAS.
They'd be grapefruit because they're a bit sour. They're hardened, they're sour. 100%.
The Marines. Mandarin.
Mandarins. You're welcome. So Adam added to the blood orange by going with a citrus and meringue inferno. This is where the chipotle should have been.
Yeah.
Where was the chili? Where was the chili? It's an inferno. Where's the chili? More chili. So blood orange and cinnamon cake with the grapefruit gel / jam. This is where we technically got grapefruit, because we hadn't had grapefruit for the whole thing. We got some grapefruit here in Adam's one.
Here comes the SAS.
And he also added himself to the Listen to Your Bakes tour at this point in time. It's when he opened it and did the full. Now, he wasn't just slightly listening. He was really getting the full stereo experience. But that didn't matter, because then we cut to the moment that I wait for every week. Ladies and gentlemen, That's Science with Sandra. And I don't know where Cal goes from here.
Don't know where Sandra goes from that line.
Hyperbaric chamber.
Next week, Cal does the whole show remotely just for the joke.
Just from a nuclear bunker.
So I love that she was
in Oppenheimer.
I love Barbenheimer.
Kallenheimer.
So I really enjoyed the fact that she was in full hazmat purely for a single squirt. Overboard. And then Kristie cackled at the line from Cal of, "Can I squirt now?"
No, that was Sandra.
Oh, Sandra, yes. Can I squirt now? Yes.
I don't know why I'm holding myself back on this. It's like maybe Sandra's, maybe there's a reputation there, and Cal knew that she had to really gear up.
So let's have a conversation about soft meringue versus crisp meringue. So let's talk soft meringue versus crisp meringue. So
yes, let's do that.
So
Yep.
they had the two different schools. You had people making soft meringue, and then you had Adam making the sort of crispier meringue. Do you have a preference, or is it just depending on what bake it is?
Oh, it just depends on what bake it is. Like, you might want to do like a soft meringue if it's going on top of a pie or whatever. Or you might want to do you do a crispy one if you're just doing meringues. Like I think Sandra would have been doing the little kisses. So those would have been like crispy little kisses, and that's a different texture from like a marshmallowy
Which
kinda...
is Lona's piping up the side, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm here for the pavlova kind of joint of both, like the crispiness on the outside,
And the soft in the
chewiness on the inside. Yeah, just
Like I think Adam did those like shards where it's just like a flat sheet of meringue. So that's just all like it'll
Crunch.
just crumble and dissolve in your mouth.
Yeah,
although that's really good too.
it is.
Oh
We then got Alona piping snowflakes because, of course, it wasn't difficult enough.
no,
So
but they looked a bit too uniform.
they were very uniform.
They're gonna look different.
They should be
Alona.
different. They're snowflakes.
The Snowflake Union will be onto you. I'm sorry, but these snowflakes are far too identical.
Now, Reem pivoted here because this is where Reem said that they want it to look like a showstopper, but she talked about the idea of she wanted to go simple elegance. And I felt like that might have been a bit of a pivot on I'm running out of time, and I'm just going to go with a clean bake and see if I can just make the flavors enough to get me through. But this was then immediately pivoted to by Nat and Cal going over to Laura's bench with marshmallows. I love that they've upped the game of taking food this year. They're now bringing food to the bench.
Yeah.
Hi, can you accentuate this for me?
Oh, you got nothing else to do. Just toast my marshmallows. That's not a euphemism either.
Oh, behind the scenes moment, and feel free to cut this if not. Behind the scenes moment. There was one episode, I can't even remember which one it was, when we were in the middle of the showstopper. Mel and Claire went out, came back with hot chips for everyone.
Oh my god, that
What a
is
treat.
fucking cool.
No, what a treat!
Oh my
That's
God.
awesome.
That wow, that's a curtain pullback that I'm here for. Was there chicken salt or no chicken salt? Like, what was the?
I think there was chicken salt, and I don't know if it was the same day or another day that was particularly warm, like icy poles just materialized in the shed.
Remember, they did say
Nice.
on the podcast they were talking about after the grand final,
Yeah.
when they were going to go do the Macca's run, and and Matt looked at them and went, "Oh, Mel." I was judging harshly the Macca's run.
I'd like to think that Maggie B has no idea what McDonald's is.
No, she's never heard of it
She's
before.
like, I think they live 4 streets over. The McDonald's, you can get what are these nuggets?
What are nuggets?
Gold nuggets? Is that-
What are nuggets? On a scale of 1 to 10,
A nougat?
on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you panic when Adam moved the plate and the whole cake went slide at 1,000,000 miles an hour like it was going to go off the bench?
I died.
Yeah.
Thank you for resurrecting coming on this podcast.
I was brought back to life by Bernard. I don't know.
But the speed, it took off, and the way that he caught it, and I'm like,
You-
oh, that would have been an absolute disaster. Like, not even like a slight disaster, it would have been a complete disaster.
Oops.
Look, it's good. It's good that it was safe because I think it was like largely being held together by meringue, and so yeah.
It
Good
would have
save.
been a Massimo Bottura moment. It would have been,
Yeah.
oops, I dropped the showstopper, and we just pretend it's something else. Smash. It was a smash dessert. So Neil then went out to the garden and took some blossoms, which, as you said, was very MasterChef.
It was.
It's a good thing that they've changed the planting outside to real. Because there are traditionally around the sheds some not real plants. And I love the idea that he goes outside and accidentally brings back plastic. Because he would have been so stressed in the middle of the challenge, you wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah, no. But
so
yeah, he wouldn't have put them on if they weren't real. Or maybe he did, and everyone was just too polite to correct him.
Darren is there chewing through plastic going, I don't want to ruin his life.
Still
This is delicious.
Still think a lorikeet would have been.
A lorikeet would have been the best topping.
Yeah. And they were around. They showed them.
Now, the last thing before we get to the judging, Laura went over to help Reem, and I absolutely loved their back and forth where Laura's like, just take a breath. Just take a breath. And Reem's like, I'm taking many breaths.
Slower, deeper breaths.
But then there was also the sad resignation when Laura's like, are you going to do anything on the top? And Reem just went, no.
Yeah.
And so there was two balances there. The I'm taking many breaths was a real, like, very funny response. And then you're going to do anything. There's this moment, and you can hear it in Reem's voice of, no. It's like, I don't have time. She didn't have time. So the judging. Alona. Rachel loved the concept of the decoration, which did sound like she didn't like it in practicality. I love the concept. Theoretically, this is great. Now, Darren said
execution, however.
Darren said simple but effective. The layers were stunning, delicious, well made. It would have had more lemon over the chocolate, though, and wanted a bit more balance.
Mm-hmm.
Neil, beautiful simplicity. Darren wanted more from a showstopper in terms of looks, but then they said the cheesecake was smooth and creamy. Everything had a great tang. Darren then said to him, you need to give less elements to the bake and you need to think about the looks a little bit more in a showstopper, which is fair.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like he's not putting a flavor in there. He's putting too much in there. And they're like, look, just bring it back a little bit. Showstoppers need to have some looks too. Laura, they loved the pivot. Very well constructed. Flavors were great. Mandarin was bright and the citrus was very well used. Adam, the flame effect was dramatic. Yeah, okay, I'll buy that. Succeeded in getting the flavor in the cake really well, however. The two meringues were both good, but Darren wanted a little bit more citrus again. And someone commented that all the feedback seemed to be more citrus. And I'm like, yep, well, it's a citrus week, and that's a fair criticism. If your criticism is put a bit more citrus hit in there, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like if they were just using like I was saying before, like if they're just using one citrus and they're not balancing it out with like a couple. I saw lime juice on Sandra's bench, even though she's working with mandarins.
Yeah.
So it's like there's balance going.
Bring the flavor up. Reem, they love the color palette. They did say it needed more on top. This is where, again, I got a bit snarky. The contrast between the soft layers and the ice cream was good, but the citrus flavor wasn't really coming through in the ice cream. And again, especially if you spent all that time making the ice cream, that would feel really annoying to me if they're like, not a lot of flavor. I just made fucking ice cream in the shed. Like, seriously, pretend.
What more do you want?
Tell everyone it's great. No blast chillers here, folks. Sandra's looked vibrant and spectacular. She nailed it. Celebrated citrus, and they said the dust over the top was like magic dust. Now, at the table talk, I didn't mention this, but at corner talk, they did say that like Sandra's, really needed to lift her game. And I'm like, no, she's been brilliant this episode. For me, she was like, I was trying to work out where I thought Star Baker was going to be. Everyone online was really happy that Sandra finally got Star Baker here because like she nailed this week.
Yeah,
like this was her week.
This is her week.
Yeah, her use of the blood orange in particular early on, like
not taunting baking gods.
She learned to not taunt the baking gods.
Yes.
And she was around for the 80s, and I have a feeling maybe that magic dust was a little more magical.
Yep, full of pink peppercorns, because as we know, the kids these days don't know anything about pink peppercorns.
Pink peppercorns and magic dust.
And of course, then we got to the going home decision, and like Neil,
so
close, but
they uninstalled
Reem. Yeah, they uninstalled a Reem. It was the right decision. She had a bit of a bad week last week as well, and just got through last week. Although Neil's had a couple of rocky weeks as well now, so it's really we're getting to that point where you're starting to see this tail end. Look, I think it's
this was the first one. This is the first episode where it was noticeably quieter in the shed.
Yeah, you noticed the lack of bakers.
Just that, It just
It's about to get a lot quieter. So we're getting towards the end. It gets a lot quieter.
Yeah. Because Reem was such a noisy presence.
Yeah, it was nothing but noise. Nothing but noise.
It didn't seem like any of the showstoppers were bad. It's just like you said, it's getting to the pointy end. It's something as little as there wasn't quite enough going on in your ice cream.
And that's the thing is that we've talked about it a lot, and it's one of the things we always talk about. You want to go home on a week where like nothing really failed.
No,
it's just somebody needs to go. We are at an end where somebody's got to go home, and everyone's baking at a high standard.
Yeah.
Like everyone's baking at a high standard.
And if Reem served any of her signature technical or showstopper, at a party, it would be well received. Like that, no one would be going, "Oh, that's a disaster." Like they were all bloody wonderful.
There was no disaster. And that's not a bad week to go home on if there's no disaster. And it's just like, look, we're at this point.
Yeah.
We're now down to 5 bakers left. With 6 bakers with Reem there, but we're down to this point where someone good is going home.
Yeah.
Because that's just the nature of what we're doing. We don't take everybody through to a grand final. It's not a 12-person grand final.
And look, she's young and she's got such.
Everyone's 1-star baker at least once. So
exactly,
like you're getting someone quality going home.
And it's going to be really competitive going forward because, as I said, I had Adam sort of in my 4. I had Adam sort of around my 4, in my top 4 of people I thought would make it towards the end. But probably I have him sort of a step down, except he's now won 3 technicals.
Yeah.
Which, you suddenly go, hang on a minute, you're baking at a really high level. And everyone is. That's the thing. Like Neil and Alona were the early sort of pace setters. But Laura's been really good and fairly consistent. Like you've noticed if there's been a wobble. Sandra's gotten better and better and better as it's gone on. And Adam is just coming on in leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
Like last week, like Darren said last week, the bake he did last week was the best bake he's done since he's been there. So like there's nothing weak left. There's no weak spots. This is a very competitive last 5.
It's a competitive, non-competitive last 5.
Exactly. It's competitive in the friendliest and nicest way where no one's particularly fast to win. Yeah. Everyone's like, cool. So anything else that you took from this episode?
Just blood orange is good.
Blood orange is good. I think what we took from this episode is the Vitruvian Nat is a great form of measurement and should be instituted across all education systems.
I personally took that more animals need to be merged with citrus flavors and then created in meringue and installed in zoos. Just ideas.
So tell everybody where they can find you, Aaron, because
not Tasmania.
Not Tasmania, no.
No, not at the moment. Aaron's Home Baking on Instagram. I have a TikTok somewhere, but I can't remember what the name is. And you can find me in a few issues of Better Homes and Gardens magazine.
Indeed, you can.
You're like the Noni Hazelhurst.
Are the cookbooks out?
Yeah, so next week, Better Homes and Gardens is, for those of you listening, we're at the end of July 2023. The Better Homes and Gardens is putting out a cookbook next week, and it's got a bunch of my recipes in it just from like my last couple of times I was in the magazine. So I'm published, y'all.
Yep, this is a published author, Aaron. Again, we're not just talking to Baker, Aaron, we're talking to published author, Aaron. Better Homes and Gardens stalwart. You're a stalwart. So,
like I said, you're the veritable Noni Hazelhurst. Better Homes and Gardens.
Oh, look, it's time for me to go the fuck to sleep.
Look out, Fast Eddie. He's coming for you. He's hunting you down.
He's got to be faster.
Thank you, Aaron. It's an absolute delight to get you on officially, finally. It's about bloody time.
Bloody orange time.
Whichever idiot didn't bother to book you before this is an absolute moron and should be shot.
I prefer not. They're quite nice, and I'm married to them.
Yes, she called me nice. I win. All right. With that one, thank you very much, Aaron. Until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we will catch you all later.
What does an orangutan sound like?